Howard County Muslims.
Yeah, so I think
live now. Okay. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, Akhi?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless
Good,
you,
good.
inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. It's really, as I said, in the backstage, as we said, it's really beautiful that I was able to capture you. Alhamdulillah. I know you are in hot demand, and I know you have so many things on your hands, but it's really a pleasure to have you today.
Okay.
Jazakumullah khair.
For
our audience, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we are truly privileged by another star in our wonderful community, Dr. Tori, Dr. Ahmed Tori. I'm going to make you blush a little bit. And then
don't do that.
So actually, he has one of the most fascinating stories to tell. Alhamdulillah, he's a revert, and mashallah, he has knowledge, deep knowledge of Islam. And he's currently the chairperson of the Islamic Society of Baltimore. And mashallah, he has really taken it to the next level. And he is very well known for mentoring the youth and the upcoming leadership at ISB, and has done a fantastic job, but also with the collaborative work and the team dynamics. And that is really one thing that he is, he's an expert at. So Dr. Tori is actually a cardiologist, but I believe
internist, actually. Yeah, I was a hospitalist for cardiology. Sorry.
But you stopped practicing, I think, in 2012. Clinical.
Ish, yeah.
And then he moved into more leadership positions, teamwork, team influence, and and whatnot. And he has done a beautiful job. And since then, mashallah, he's an entrepreneur. He has put video games, apps for the iPhone. He's a keynote speaker at many nonprofit as well as corporate events. And he is an artist at the art of influence and persuasion. And honestly, I could probably have used your help yesterday with my discussion with my family.
We can talk about that if you want, online or offline, up to you.
If it's still available, I may have to take you on it. Mashallah, he's a father of 6 beautiful children. And mashallah, I think 4 of them are Hafiz of the Quran.
Yes.
MashaAllah. And from the 6, he still have a full set of hair, and he has not a grade yet. So whatever you are doing, we could learn from you, MashaAllah. And if you're going to teach us a little bit about how team dynamics. Now we are in crowded spaces. We are really dealing with our families. Some of us already had tight families. Some of us are a little bit, we're really rediscovering a lot of things about our own either spouses or children and whatnot. I would love for you to teach us, how for us to be on the same team. How can we influence people? How can we persuade them so that we have a similar vision? And if not, you will have to teach me how to do hypnosis as well.
Okay. So is it all right with you if I share my screen? Maybe I can present a bit.
Yes, so please share your screen and take us through for the next 30 minutes.
Sure. Give me one sec. Okay. All right. Can you see what's in front of you? A mind map. Can you see that?
Yes.
It says moving people and influencing behaviors. So first of all, let me start with Bismillah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulil kareem. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I want to talk to you a bit about influence and persuasion, and I'm going to correct you briefly because you said the art of influence and persuasion. I will add that there is an art element to the application of it, and then there's the science behind how and why it works, and what works and what doesn't. So there's both, and we'll touch on that, inshallah. So why does this matter to anyone here that's paying attention to this broadcast? Is that this will help you at home, as Dr. Yassine said, at home while we're in our particular situation with quarantine and close quarters with our family. Also, it'll help you with anything that you're doing at work, anything that you do in the community. If you are in meetings like this online, this will help you both with video meetings and with meetings in person when they do occur. Actually, I don't know, are you getting feedback? I'm getting some sort of like, maybe if someone else can mute, if anyone else is on. No?
No, I think we are the only.
It sounds okay on your end?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so why it matters to you is that you can apply this absolutely everywhere. If you're returning something at Walmart, if you are trying to influence someone at work, at school, at home, it doesn't matter. This will help you. Now, my personal why, there's a little bit of a backstory in that early on in my career, there was a period of time where I felt like I was burning out, and I needed to find a way sort of out of my my particular career. And so I started looking for an exit strategy. And to do that, I started several online businesses. And while I was learning how to accelerate those businesses beyond what they were doing, I had to learn marketing. And so here's what happened. I started to learn marketing. The way I did it was I called an expert and I said, hey, can I come learn from you? Can I understand how you see the world and see if I can, just take some pearls and some nuggets, and I'll study what you tell me to study, and I'll learn from you. And so what happened is I started to learn marketing so that I could accelerate my business. But what happened is, actually there is a lot of feedback. I'm getting messages as well. It sounds like almost like someone's chewing. Let's see. That seems much better. So maybe, okay. So that sounds much better to you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. So, okay. So so I was saying that some of my backstory was that I went and I studied marketing. I started to learn marketing for the sake of sort of accelerating my businesses. And it turns out that what happened is my relationships with my patients improved, relationships with nurses and social workers and case managers and my supervising physicians, all those relationships improved. My relationships at home with my kids, with my wife, with my friends, with the community, all of those relationships started to improve. And so I thought, what is this? This isn't marketing. I'm not marketing to them. Well, except, sometime, maybe we'll talk about it afterwards, but sometimes you market to your wife. That's a different story. But essentially, what was it? Why were my relationships improving? And it's because the principles in marketing apply to the human-human connection. And so what became my why was that, I, as a physician, as a father, as a Muslim, I looked and I saw, the more I studied of marketing, the more I realized that these companies like Coca-Cola, Anheuser-Busch, Philip Morris, Burger King, McDonald's, Hershey, Mars, Disney, Zynga, all these companies, they spend billions, and I mean billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, to influence people to do the very things that all of us are trying to undo. Our dean is trying to undo these things. Our health providers are trying to undo these things. Those of us who are concerned about health and wellness and good sleep and good healthy habits, we're trying to undo it. Physicians are trying to undo it. Our teachers, our community members are trying to undo the effects of these companies. And these companies are devoting billions of dollars to getting us to shape our desires, essentially. And so the question is, could we, parents, nonprofit organizations, health and wellness coaches and providers, could we push back? And so that became my why. And so that's essentially what my why was. Can we arm the good people of the world, the people who are doing charities and who are servicing the world? Can we arm them with interpersonal influence, communication, persuasion, body language, rapport skills? So now, what do I do at my work currently? So professionally, I run an influence center. So I train nurses and doctors and other health providers, as well as administrators on the sciences and arts of influence and persuasion and rapport for the sake of behavior change. So can we get people to do things that are healthy behaviors? Outside of work, I also do quite a bit of obviously, as Dr. Yassine said, I'm a speaker. I do a lot of training for corporations. I'm a consultant, and I'm an executive coach. And I'm just, none of that is really important, except to say that influence and persuasion is my day-to-day. It's what I'm doing, again, for the sake of good behavior change. By the way, after studying under marketing, I then went on to study other disciplines, which I'll allude to, but there are lots of disciplines out there who know that their job is to influence. And what's different is we tend to not really focus on that. And so what I'm hoping that you get out of this is that you start being more deliberate, more intentional about your communications with folks. So in general, I'll just let you know that there are 4 main domains that I'm always working in. And these are states, meaning like your mood, your intention, how present you are. Frames, so sort of the lens through which you see things. Patterns, those are patterns of behavior, patterns of the environment, and then also timing. When do these interactions occur and in what setting and those sort of things. So those are the 4 main domains. Those aren't necessarily important right now. We can talk about those another time. But in general, I do want to tell you that influencers honor communication on multiple levels. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of things in our language that sort of point to us honoring the intellect over other forms of communication. We honor knowledge, data, evidence, reason. We talk about things like emotion and these other things as if they are reptilian brain or lower self or these other things, and we don't actually utilize them or necessarily give them the station that they deserve when it comes to communication. Okay. Now, certainly, if we're responding to our emotions and our desires and our base things, that's a different issue. What I'm talking about is understanding them for the sake of better communication. So when influencers speak or communicate, write, design an environment, do anything, there's the head, the heart, and the gut. And here's the thing. We have it messed up. We tend to focus on the head. We focus on our logical evidence, our reason for arguing, right? We focus on data. But what happens is influencers flip it. They do the gut and the heart, meaning emotions, gut instinct, and then the head. And they separate out the head into non-conscious and conscious. Now, non-conscious and conscious. Why? Because there are, actually our brain can only handle a very small number of things at any one time in the conscious sense. Meaning we can only pay attention to certain things, a certain number of things. And the moment that gets overwhelmed, we lose attention for something and we still focus on other things. So some people say it's 5 to 9 things at a time that we can focus on. Others go as high as 30. But the point is, there's a lot of non-conscious influences coming in. Like right now, perhaps you're sitting down and you're feeling the chair or the couch or the floor under you, right? That data was coming in all the time through your nerves, right? But you weren't paying attention to it. But now that I drew attention to the fact that you're sitting and you're feeling what that feels like, that is essentially how an influencer works. They draw attention to where they want you to focus. Where attention goes, this is a saying in influence and especially in hypnosis, where attention goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. So where you draw attention really matters. And then also influencers focus on the non-conscious domain, things that people are not aware of and that influence you. So we'll cover some of that as we go through it. Certainly, if we get to the question and answer, we can cover more. Now, so here's the formula for influence, essentially. Essentially, an influencer asks, who am I going to influence? Where are they now? And then where do I want them to be? Okay, so here's what that thing looks like. It basically looks like this. Where are they now? Here they are. They're right here. What's their state? What's their mood? What do they care about? What are they afraid of? What do they love? What moves them? Where are they now? That's where they are. Then what we do is we use data or evidence or logic or knowledge to say, oh, this is where we want them to be. Okay, so in the case of a physician, you might say, okay, here they are. They've tried to quit smoking 15 times. It hasn't worked at all. And the data says that if they quit smoking, their health will be better. They'll have lower risk of catching, they'll have lower risk of having complications of COVID-19. They'll have lower risk of lung cancer and heart disease and all these other things. That's what the data tells us. But we don't move them here with the data. We move them with emotion. So the average person doesn't really care about the percentage or life expectancy or these sort of things that occur with the smoking, but they do care. They might care about, say, throwing the football with their grandson, or their ability to climb the steps to see their daughter or something in the house attached or whatever, right? Or the ability to walk around the track with their friends for social. That's what they care about. So you move them with that thing. So essentially, where are they now and where do I want them to be? And then you move them there. And by the way, along the way, you microcalibrate. because as you start moving someone down a path, sometimes you have to adjust because their states change, the context changes, all these things. So the human-human interaction is dynamic, it's fluid. So you have to be prepared for that fluid element. You have to be prepared to adjust on the fly. And in fact, this is why, if you look at it, you see so many hadith where the Prophet ﷺ would answer a question to one person and then he'd answer the same question to someone else differently. Why? Because the human-human interaction is dynamic. Those people are different. Their contexts are different. Their understandings are different. So he answered them. Both answers were truthful and beautiful and elegant, and we can all benefit from them. But in that moment, he was speaking to, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was speaking to somebody who needed to hear it that way. And the next time he was speaking to somebody who needed to hear it that way. He adjusted based on who he was talking to. Again, always speaking the truth, of course, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, some myths and objections that some people have, let me back out so I'm not zooming into your whole thing. So some myths and objections that some people have about influence and persuasion. One is that, oh, this is manipulative. It's underhanded, it's evil, so these sort of things. That's one thing. And what I'm going to tell you is that you already do it. You already do it. So haven't you ever had, say, a friend who lost a loved one? What did you do? Did you console them? Well, why'd you do that? Were you trying to influence them? Were you trying to influence them to feel better? Or were you manipulating them? No, you weren't. You were being a friend. You were being a human soul, comforting another human soul. That is influence. If you're a parent and you're trying to influence your children to have better behaviors, is the reward or the punishment or the conversation or the emotions associated with things, are you manipulating them? No, you're parenting. That's influence. You're trying to influence them. In fact, nothing moves on this planet without influence. Everywhere there's a human, there's influence. Now you can optimize it or you can leave it go. And now another objection that people have, or myth really, is that some people say, well, you have it or you don't. You're a people person or you're not. Nope, not true. You can learn it. It's influence, persuasion, rapport. These things are skills that you can learn and you can improve on them as long as you are deliberate and intentional and practice the right things. Okay, so the other thing is some people say, oh, it takes more time. It doesn't take more time. In fact, you're already greeting somebody. Why not optimize that greeting? You're already, having a conversation with them. Why not optimize that conversation? In fact, it takes less time. Influence and rapport are the highest yield productivity tools known to humankind, because wherever you're interacting with a human, you can optimize it to influence them quicker or deeper, in a more deeper kind of sense. So just wanted to remove some of those. Now, there are lots of powerful disciplines to borrow from, and I'm not going to go through these. I'm just showing you the extensive. I have everything from marketing and media to hypnotherapy to cognitive psychology to neuroscience to entertainment and game design and clergy and cult leaders and con men and improv and journalism. All of these disciplines that we can borrow from. Here's the difference between us and them. They know that their job is influence. Okay, so that's one. There's tons of powerful disciplines that we can borrow from. And here's the beauty. All of them are doing things that are very similar, but they have different words for them, different language, different essentially different language. They're using the same strategies and techniques, but they don't always go as deep into each of the things. So for example, parenting yields a lot from psychology and developmental psych and mental health and things like that, right? And they don't rely enough on, say, the entertainment industry or cinematography or other disciplines that are out there. Certainly hypnosis, using the way you phrase words or intonation in your speech. These sort of things. Improv. Parenting, the discipline. When you take a parenting course, you typically don't learn about these other disciplines. But in many of these disciplines borrow from each other, and some where they have gaps, the other disciplines have filled those gaps. Now, we could talk about each of those disciplines and go in, and those could be days. We could talk about those things, but we won't. We only have a few minutes. The other thing we could talk about is all the different influence principles out there. I mean, there's a ton. If you start looking for influence and persuasion, there's all kinds of things, that talk about the various elements of body language and scarcity and social proof and how you frame your questions and all these things. We don't have to go through all of these. That's another beautiful thing about influence, because you're doing it every day. So I'm going to show you some things that you're already doing. Now, have you ever seen people using a script or heard people using a script? You know, you call like Verizon customer service and they're like, you know, hi, yeah, my name's Ed Tori. I'm calling because, you know, my clicker isn't clicking. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Tori. Yeah, but when I clicked the thing, it was working, but then it's not. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Tori. And then, no, well, no. And then they say, I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Tori. No, you're not sorry I feel that way. You're using a script. And scripts are inauthentic. Scripts destroy rapport. So instead, we should be fluid, adaptive, and ready to adjust on the fly. In the interest of time, I am not going to talk about the 6 universal principles of persuasion unless that comes up in question and answer. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about the 7 simple rules of influence. These are 7 things that if you do them, you will transform every relationship you have. Okay? You will transform every relationship you have. And you can start right after this is over with the first one, and this is the most important one. Manage your state. Manage your mood. Manage your emotions. Manage your frame of mind. Before you have any interactions, right? I said human-human interactions are dynamic. The person is dynamic. They change. They're in different states at different times. The time is dynamic. How they are at the beginning of the day, how they are before a test, after a test, how they are before an argument, after an argument, how they are before a nice walk outside or playing a game, and how they are after. All of these their states are different. So they're different. They're dynamic. The context is dynamic. What is the one static thing there, or one thing that's in your control? It's the environment a bit. You can change the environment a bit, design it, shape it. But the thing that's most in control is you. You can control yourself, control your own emotions. And there's lots of ways to control your emotions. Some people meditate. Some people pray. Some people make dua. Some people remember somebody. Some people make dhikr. Some people go for a walk. You could do yoga. You could watch silly YouTube videos. Whatever it takes to manage your state. To manage your state in a way that is optimum for whatever the conversation is you're about to have. If you're about to have, if you're trying to make guests feel welcome, that's very different than talking to your teenage daughter about their social media usage, right? Those are different states. You need to be optimized for those. Now, so one tool that's already in our deen, husnul dhan, assume the best. One way to manage your state is to assume the best in the other person right before you go meet with them. Even if, like, let's say it's at work and you can't stand them. You can't stand them, and your skin crawls every time before you even get in there, and you know it's going to be a bad interaction. That's part of your state. You have to change that. The only way you're going to change the interaction is to change your state. So you first, what do? Maybe take a few moments and write down a few good qualities about that person. Take a few moments and just say, you know what, even though we don't get along, she's kind of stubborn, but that helps when we have an issue that we have to get through. Or that helps with such and such, right? So manage your state. Think good things about the other person. Make excuses for them. Sometimes you can manage your state by changing a frame. If you think about your, like, I'll give one example. I was about to have some friends over, and we had spent hours cleaning at home, hours. And I walked into the living room, and it was like 15 minutes before everybody showed up, and there were like sheets hanging up on the lights. There were pillow cushions were off of the couch. I mean, it was like a big mess, right? And at first I was going to get angry, but instead I took a moment and I reframed it. And I thought to myself, in 10 years, this living room is going to be exactly as I left it, right? So in other words, my kids won't be here, and I should be grateful that I have happy, healthy kids. And that was enough to change my state. So manage your state, however you do it. This is a key component. By the way, I'm getting a little more feedback. You might want to mute if you can, unless you're about to tell me something.
I think probably I'm just getting the mute, but I'm going to mute myself a little bit. But that's a beautiful thing. Husnul dhan, it's really, really important. And to also really try to manage your state. And I think that is one issue that we will talk about, inshallah, a little bit. Inshallah, we still have about 7 more minutes, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. So I'll fly through the next few, and then I'll tell you. So the next one, first one is manage your state. The second one is to try to manage their state, make them comfortable. I promise you, you're not going to get the best interaction if your teenager isn't comfortable when you're about to have that hard conversation. You're not going to get the best interaction if you're a clinician and you're about to have an interaction with a patient if they're not comfortable. If you're about to negotiate, you're not going to have a good interaction unless they're comfortable. So part of your job is to make them comfortable. And there's lots of ways to make them comfortable. We could talk about that another time. This one is very important. It's to remove objections early. If somebody has an objection and it's like a voice inside of their head that's like just speaking to them the whole time that voice is talking, guess what? It's louder than yours. They won't hear a word you say if they have an objection. If they have an objection, it's just a voice hammering away inside their head. And here's the thing about objections. You have to remove them early. And sometimes you can do so subtly. Like, for example, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're walking through the grocery store and you look over and you see a magazine and it says, 3 ways to six-pack abs without leaving your desk, right? 3 ways to six-pack abs, what? So that was crafted, by the way, by a discipline called direct response copywriting. Their only job is to get you to pick up the magazine. But 3 ways to six-pack abs without leaving your desk, what did they do? They removed a couple of objections in a phrase. They said 3. So it's a short list, easy to get through, no big deal. Without leaving my desk, I was probably going to say to myself, I don't have time for six-pack abs. I'm 48 years old. I'm busy professional, homeschool my kids. Blah, blah, blah. I don't have time for doing that, right? Also, I'm already married. Hopefully my wife's not watching. Just kidding. But anyway, they removed objections with a single phrase, and you can do that. And here's the thing. This is important also for motivating yourself, to move yourself. This is extremely important because we have these little voices inside of our heads that are actually telling us stuff that's bad for us. So for example, some people might say, I'm bad at remembering names, or I've never been good at math, or I'm awful at public speaking. If you believe that stuff, are you going to take any action to get better at those things? No. That's why they're called limiting beliefs. I once had a patient say to me, I can't lose weight, it's genetic. And she basically said, and maybe it is genetic, but to her, genetics equaled destiny. And that meant, what kind of action was she going to take to try to lose weight? None, right? Our limiting beliefs are just like that. Oh, it won't work here because this community center is run by a bunch of uncles. That won't work. Oh, those youth right there, they don't know how to manage money. I'm not giving to that place. Those are limiting beliefs and they harm us. You need to remove those objections early. Remove them from yourself before taking an action, before you start a workout program, before you start eating healthy, before you go into that relationship and have that hard conversation. You need to remove objections early and address the limiting beliefs. We could talk about limiting beliefs for a long time because those are super powerful. That's lots of things we can do. Now, as far as moving other people, it's best to move people with what already moves them. So if you know the person you're talking to, what moves them? Use that thing to move them, okay? Use that to move them. Rule number 5 is remark about the remarkables. Okay, here's the thing, especially in parents, especially when we're cooped up in our homes these days, we're not saying what was really good. And especially if there's more than one person in the home. If there's more than one person in the home or more than one person on your team, tell someone else about something that someone else did that was great, right? Because when you remark about something that was remarkable, something that was good, spread good gossip, it increases rapport because guess what? It gets back to them. They find out, oh, did you hear that she said that such and such about you? Oh, he said such and such great stuff. Gossip flies. It flies through the crowd. Why not make it good stuff? By it being good, you're reinforcing a good behavior and you're improving your rapport for the very next time, the very next interaction. It doesn't feel like you have an agenda, like you're manipulating because you told someone else about something good that they did, right? So remark about remarkables. Rule number 6 is to make it easy. Make it easy. Whatever you want someone to do, make it easy to do. Whatever you want them not to do, make it difficult for them to do it. This is very simple. This is a design issue. Design, architect, construct the sort of the task at hand or the behavior or the environment or the thing in such a way that is easy to do. Okay, so make it easy to do the good things, make it difficult to do the things that are not, that you don't want them to do. And then lastly, I would say manage your action. What do I mean by this? So you're starting off by managing your emotions, your state, your mood, your frame. You also have to manage your behavior, your own behavior, your actions. And by this, I mean deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. Ask yourself, take account of your actions and your day. How did it go? How did that last conversation go? oh, maybe I should have put my phone down a few minutes before I talked to them, instead of going in there distracted by what I just read, or going in there with a slight smirk on my face because I saw something on the phone, and now I'm going into a serious conversation with a slight smirk on my face. No, manage your behavior. Take account of your behavior. Look back and say, how could I have done that better? Not, what did she do to me? What did he say about me? Why did he say it that way? No, this isn't about them. This is about you, and you being better at your own behavior, your own coming to that interaction, that relationship. If it's important to you, you will step up, you'll level up. And so these are the 7 simple rules of influence. By the way, something not mentioned here is that I hope I implied earlier, was to say you do these in your way, in your authentic way. You don't look up some prescription and follow the steps. This is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. These aren't steps. These are simple rules. These are things that if you abide by them, you will, and you do them in your own way. If you're not authentic, it's not going to work. So you have to be sincere, genuine, authentic, and then come at it with, be very deliberate about your emotions. If you're not in the right state, cancel the meeting, delay the conversation, move it until you're able to get in that right state. If you weren't very good at removing their objections early, look back and say, oh, what could I have done better? What are their objections? Think about it before you get in, that sort of thing. So anyway, these are some of the general things. I'll tell you, I'll just conclude with, if there's one thing you heard today, it's this: manage your state. Manage your state before your conversations, before you open an email, before you type an email, before you send a text. Manage your state. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. Maybe we'll, I guess, get to question and answer. I realize that the time is an issue, but let's just see. If there's anything here you want me to go deeper on, I'm happy to. Sure.
Jazakumullah khair, mashallah.
Yeah,
this is really beautiful. And actually, I wish that we had this discussion yesterday, because I learned so much. I had a discussion with my teenager yesterday, and then what happened was today, so I, at the end of it, it kind of was not going very well. So I said, you know what, let's wait, and then we will have a civilized discussion. And then, this morning I came back and we had a discussion about it. And, I was like, and then I said, look, whatever I do, I just want you to know that I do it because I love you. And, coming from an Arab parent, that's a weird thing to say. Like, we're not used to, even though my father was actually very affectionate, and I'm a very affectionate, but verbally speaking, we're just not used to that. And then, the moment I said that, I could see a complete change in his behavior. But then I had to mull overnight. I was like, why was I upset? Right? What made me upset? What was the behavior that, how can I? And clearly it was not going very well. So this morning when I talked to him, I said, I want you to know that there is a reason that, that everything I do is because I love you and I care for you and I want what is best for you. And we are on the same team. And then, mashallah, this was really, really beautiful. And it is part of our deen, as you said. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, staying at night, and then, praying and reading the Quran and reciting, kana khuluquhu al-Quran. This whole etiquette, his whole behavior, character was the Quran, right? So, and it was the most beautiful of a state. So he was always that calming presence. He was always that person that people gravitate towards and are not scared of. But then, you're right. Like, what is this person asking about? What is that? What are they doing? I know that, we normally, if I were to attend this in a corporate meeting, I probably would be footing $1,000 a plate or something. So these are really true gems that I hope that our community benefits from. I am so sorry that I had to push you through the time, because I do realize, even though what you said was intuitive, it's going to take me another time to actually go through it a little bit slowly and internalize it. And mashallah, as you said, it's so good that we are already doing some, but really there has to be a deliberate way. Let me see if there are any questions, inshallah, on the YouTube channel. Brother Haider, is there anything from you or somebody else that I'm not aware of?
While you're waiting for questions, I will say this. Most of the times when we get angry, it's because we've applied meaning to something. We have applied meaning. And so if our child or our spouse does something, we actually internally associate a meaning with that thing and say, they said this and this means this. Or when we receive an email, we get inflamed by it, but it's because we're assigning meaning. And when most of the time with husnul dhan, it turns out, how many times have you thought they meant something and they didn't actually mean that? And you boiled over it and you know, ruined the relationship somehow with response. It's mostly because we're applying meaning. So part of managing your state is reflecting and assuming the best in what they meant also. So anyway, go ahead. So third question is, go ahead.
Actually,
mashallah, that's really beautiful. And you know, you are with a family or you are with a group, and you really, for the vast majority of the time, you have the same goal. And giving people the benefit of the doubt, and you're on the same team and having the same goal, you have to recognize that there are dynamics, there are differences and whatnot. But the vast majority, especially now we are in close surroundings with our families, there's an innate loving relationship. There's a compassion. There is, you know, this is the nucleus. This is where you close the door, and then you are the most comfortable, but you are the most vulnerable, or you are the most you want to be. And as the Prophet taught us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, khayrukum khayrukum li ahli. The best of you is the best of you to your families, because these guards and this shell that we put for the outside, we may drop it off when we get home. In the meanwhile, we really should continue to practice it. So jazakumullah khair for helping me manage my estate. So we have a quick question. How do you convince them to get a decent haircut? Is that a hit for me? Or?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that. See, you just applied meaning to the post. I would say go back to that rule where it says move them with what already moves them. So why are they even doing the hair that way? And when you figure out that why, try to show them that they're not actually heading towards that why. They're not actually heading in the right direction, applied to what they already care about. So that's a good way of doing it. So sort of just move people with what already moves them. So know what moves them, find that out, and then use that. So
mashallah, jazakumullah khair. Any last words that you have for our community in these trying times?
I would say this: a part of managing your state is managing your attention. Remember, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you are paying attention to anxiety-provoking news, I mean, it's important to every once in a while tap in and make sure you're adhering to the latest guidelines and those sort of things. But if you're constantly consuming anxiety-provoking news, it will lead to a state of anxiety. So instead, where attention goes, energy flows. Don't focus on what people are doing to you. Focus on how you can serve. That's a better thing. And then also another way this where attention goes, energy flows point is like if you're trying to tell your kid to do something. Let's say you have a little kid and they're jumping on the bed. If you say don't jump on the bed, where does their attention go? Jumping on the bed. So don't point people into the direction you want them to avoid. Instead, draw attention to what you want them to do. Remember, design it so that it's easy to do the thing that you want them to do, difficult to do the thing you don't want them to do, and draw attention to the thing you want them to do. This is really important. So you might say, get that book on salamanders and we'll read that, or get, oh, we have this such and such a thing. Let's do that. Draw attention to the thing you want, not the thing that they're doing wrong necessarily. That can come later with a deeper discussion or another moment. That's another time for influence. But in general, where your attention goes, your energy flows. So don't draw attention to the bad stuff, even for yourself. It's really important for managing your state.
MashaAllah. I can attest to this actually today. I have my 2-year-old, and she was nagging her mother, and she was crying, and she was like, throwing a fit, and she just, and then I went there, and she did not even want to see me because she was still so angry. And then I looked at her and I said, oh, do you want to go for a bike ride? And then she's like, no. And she's like, bike ride, yes, bike ride. So
draw attention.
She enjoys it, and I wanted to divert her attention, and then we went for a bike ride for social distancing appropriate, as they call it. And then we came back, and she was incredibly much more calm, and she even forgot what she was fussing about.
Yeah, of course.
MashaAllah, may Allah bless you. And
Anyway.
the question was by a brother, I wish that somebody can give me a haircut, but I may have to go back to the residency days where I used to do it myself. So it's may Allah bless you. May Allah bless your family. May Allah bless our community. May Allah protect our community. May Allah protect all of His creation against one of His creation, which is this virus. May Allah alleviate and relieve the suffering of all of the sufferers. SubhanAllah, this has been a humbling experience for all of us. And I hope that we really heed the example that we are powerless, and therefore we reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and again manage our state. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khair.